It's absolutely outrageous, and you'll pardon me if I'm not impressed in any way by Rand Paul's fiscal responsibility virtue signaling.
Here's Jon Stewart making up his own set of facts so he can feel good about himself, and we shouldn't let it stand.
If you've done any investigation into what's going on with the first responders and a lot of the people who were at ground zero and survived on 9/11, it's absolutely horrific. As of December 2017, the most common conditions certified by the World Trade Center Health Program were rhinosinusitis, gastroesophageal reflux disease, asthma, sleep apnea, cancer, post-traumatic stress disorder, respiratory disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, depression, and anxiety disorder. The most common cancers were skin cancer and prostate cancer. The toxic dust that hung in the air long after 9/11 caused people major problems and continues to cause problems today. Rand Paul is being painted out to be a hypocritical, virtue-signaling garbage human by Jon Stewart, who says that Paul is acting like he's concerned about balancing the budget on the backs of 9/11 first responders, essentially hanging them out to dry. Rand Paul fires back by saying that Jon Stewart is part of the leftist outrage mob who isn't interested in facts when dealing with this issue. Paul says that it makes no sense to borrow money from China, no matter how good the idea is. He also says that he's never been for any spending that's not offset. And if you think about it, in the long run, it damages far more people than it could possibly save by maintaining a course of unsustainable fiscal irresponsibility. Because once that system fails, nobody gets anything. I went through this whole debate and condensed some of the most vital clips.
Well, look, I know Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart is sometimes funny, sometimes informed, but in this case, he's neither funny nor informed. I've spent my entire Senate career putting forward pay-fors for any time spending is expanded. As soon ago as 2 weeks ago, I put forward a pay-for for the border funding. I put forward a pay-for the disaster funding. I do this on every new bit of funding.
Rand Paul presented tissue paper avoidance of the $1.5 trillion tax cut that added hundreds of billions of dollars to our deficit. And now he stands up at the last minute after 15 years of blood, sweat, and tears from the 9/11 community to say that it's all over now. Now we're going to balance the budget on the backs of the 9/11 first responder.
Any new spending that we are approaching, any new program that's going to have the longevity of 70, 80 years should be offset by cutting spending that's less valuable. We need to, at the very least, have this debate. I will be offering up an amendment if this bill should come to the floor, but until then, I will object. So he's really not informed, and his name-calling just sort of exposes him as a left-winger, part of the left-wing mob that really isn't using his brain and is willing to call people names, and it's really kind of disgusting.
Brett, this is about what kind of society do we have. At some point, we have to stand up for the people who have always stood up for us, and at this moment in time, maybe cannot stand up for themselves due to their illnesses and their injuries. And what Rand Paul did today on the Senate was outrageous. He is a guy that put us in hundreds of billions of dollars of debt. He was the 51st vote on that cut. And now he's going to tell us that $1 billion a year over 10 years is just too much for us to handle.
They're misinformed, and they're either liars or misinformed. When we passed the tax bill, the pay-go provision was in the tax bill. So as we passed the bill, the next instruction should have been by the end of the year, we would have had to cut spending. In a subsequent bill, they went ahead and got rid of the pay-go rules in some big, enormous spending bill. I objected to it, and I forced an amendment vote on it, and only 9 people voted with me. But when I voted for the tax bill, it actually had provisions in it that says you'd have to cut spending if there's any less revenue. But the left-wing mob doesn't care about the truth. Jon Stewart doesn't care about the truth. It's all about me, Jon Stewart. Look at me, I'm on TV. But here's the thing
do you regret that tax bill vote then, Senator, given what happened on the pay-go thing?
No, because I voted for a tax bill with the pay-go provision in it.
Now, knowing that they took that out after you regret that vote.
I regret that 91 of my colleagues voted to take pay-go out when I didn't, but you shouldn't blame me for that.
It's all over now. Now we're going to balance the budget on the backs of the 9/11 first responder community. You know, there's some things that they have no trouble putting on the credit card, But somehow when it comes to the 9/11 first responder community, the cops, the firefighters, the construction workers, the volunteers, the survivors, all of a sudden, man, we got to go through this.
Because, see, he pretended for years when he was on his comedy show to be somebody who could see both sides and see through the BS on both sides. Well, now he is the BS. The BS meter's through the roof when you see him calling people names, calling people an abomination, when I'm asking something very reasonable, that an amendment be included to consider whether we should pay for this, for taking money somewhere else in the budget. Doesn't actually reduce the deficit, it just keeps the deficit from getting bigger. It's a very reasonable thing. I've done it dozens and dozens of times, including on the tax bill. The left-wing mob says, oh, but you're for tax cuts, but you're not for doing anything to offset the tax cuts. There's something called pay-go, and I was the leader in trying to keep that in the tax bill. It was in the tax bill when we passed it and was later taken out of the tax bill over my objections.
Senator Paul and Senator Lee are opportunists. They're bottom feeders, and any statement that they come out with is doesn't hold water with me. You can't cherry pick and choose when you want to be a conservative fiscal hawk.
So I have consistently voted against spending bills if they are not budgetarily neutral, and if we don't expand the deficit. I won't vote for it. We have a $22 trillion debt. We're borrowing more than almost $2 million every minute, and I've consistently sounded that theme. And what is really disgusting is people like Jon Stewart lie to the American public. People like Kirsten Gillibrand lie to the American public. I have been absolutely consistent from the get-go. I have forced like 4 or 5 votes this year on having offset spending cuts to new spending. I lose every time because Republicans and Democrats are terrible. This is the thing. This bill is completely irresponsible. You know what it says for how much money we're going to spend? Such sums as are necessary. So if Jon Stewart could read, maybe he'd read the bill and say, oh my God, who in their right mind would vote for a bill that doesn't have a dollar amount in it? It has no dollar amount. But there's no way. But to have an open-ended thing that goes to 2092, really? We're going to have a spending bill that says you spend whatever you want until 2092. It doesn't matter how good the cause is. It's irresponsible. And really, people need to wake up and not be so sort of overwhelmed by celebrity that they take out-and-out falsehoods and ad hominem attacks from really a gutter snipe like Jon Stewart.
Listen, we're not surprised by Senator Lee and Paul. This is their M.O. So I think both of the senators, the people from the state of Kentucky and the people from the state of Utah deserve better.
Much better.
And I think they lack humanity.
The other thing about the tax bill that the left won't tell you is, guess what? When we cut corporate tax rates, we got more revenue. Art Laffer was right. Supply side economics works. You lower tax rates and you can sometimes get more revenue. Revenue went up after the tax cuts. The deficit did too, but because we refused to address spending in this town. And what I don't like about this, about the lies and the ad hominem attacks from Jon Stewart and Kirsten Gillibrand and the whole left-wing mob, is they are telling a lie. I've consistently been for spending cuts, even on tax bills, and I'm going to offer one on this bill also. No matter how good the cause is, we should offset the spending. It makes no sense to borrow money from China to give it to money, no matter how good the idea is.
But if you don't offset it, are you, Rand Paul, saying you will not vote for this? You will not vote for this measure?
I don't vote for any spending that's not offset. I didn't vote for the border spending recently, even though I support more money for the border, because the responsible thing to do is to take that money from somewhere else in the budget.
This president is presiding over what will be the $2 trillion deficit in a row. No one seems to be watching the till, right?
Except for me, and I continue to watch it no matter how good the cause is. I say, if you want to spend new money, find waste elsewhere in a $4.2 trillion spending budget. It's everywhere. How about the $300,000 we spent on Japanese quail to see if they're more sexually promiscuous on cocaine? How about the $2 million we spent studying whether or not if someone sneezes on the food in front of you at the cafeteria, whether you're more or less likely to get the food? That runs throughout the budget, and until you're willing to cut that kind of stuff out to pay for something more important like the 9/11 victims, you're not doing your job. Just to add it on and borrow it is inexcusable. It's wrong, and it really is what's wrong with Washington, is that everybody fears people like Jon Stewart will say, you lack humanity. People fear that, and they fear that celebrity, so they're unwilling to stay up and speak truth to lies. So when they argue and they bellyache and say, oh, he's blocking the bill. No, I'm trying to have a debate in our country about whether or not deficits matter and whether or not we should offset new spending, and I think I should be commended and loudly cheered for being one of the few fiscally responsible people up here.
What might clear the air a little is to have both Jon Stewart and Rand Paul sit down and calmly discuss this issue face to face instead of the go-between back and forth. So who do you think is on the right side of this? Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the Google Thought Police in the comments section below. If you guys enjoy these videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, and share it with everybody you know. Also, check out over 100 hard-hitting designs in the shirt store, and if you want to support more content, hit me up on Patreon or PayPal. All those links will be in the description and in the pinned comment. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow ban video.